Yes, thanks, Sarah. My name is Sean Kellett. I'm from the Cloud Practice Group at Telstra, and today I'm here to talk about learning analytics as a service. I'll put my hand up straight away and say I'm not a learning analytics expert by any stretch. I'm probably not even a novice. So I've come here with a couple of assumptions and more of a problem than a solution. So I'll get to the problem in a little while, and what I'm really hoping is to be able to ask for some help to solve it. So I've come with two assumptions. The first one is that learning analytics is a relatively new area and practitioners are open to delivering it as a service. And secondly, the practitioners plan to commercialise their work and maybe looking for a partner to assist. So on a personal note, I actually have two school-aged children at the moment, Lachlan, who's 7, and Sam, who's 5, and I'm very interested in their education, and I'd like to be kept abreast of how well they're doing. And so this is partly why I have a very strong interest in this area. So learning analytics as a service. I plan to tackle this question by first looking at the promise of cloud computing, its main benefits, and a review of the services that are available today. Then I plan to look at a case study. So we're doing some work in the K-12 community, and I've included this example for two reasons. First, it will help me explain the benefits of cloud computing and place it in a broader context of where the problem is in that community. And secondly, it will help me demonstrate where I suspect there might be an opportunity for a learning analytics solution. I'll then finish off looking at learning analytics as a service. So the promise of cloud computing is really a promise to application developers. So this might be a website developer, a database developer, maybe even a learning analytics application developer. So if you plan to build an application, these are the 4 promises cloud computing is making to you. First is improved utilisation. So this is around matching demand to resource allocation. The idea here is that we need to ensure that the resources are used by the application either underutilised or overutilised. On demand is simply that the resources are available to you when you need them. So for traditional applications, there's usually a long lead time to give the supplier time to ship the infrastructure, to have it assembled, to add the applications, have it tested, etc. Scale quickly. With traditional applications, scaling the infrastructure to meet new demand generally requires human intervention, such as adding a hard disk or so forth. But with cloud computing, it should be the application itself can add the resources when required. Finally, cloud computing promises a pay-as-you-go model. So rather than a CapEx type model where you have to pay for everything up front, it's an OpEx model where you pay as you use the service. This goes some way, I guess, to addressing one of the issues around sticker shock that sometimes happens when you request services from IT. So some service examples of cloud computing. So these 3 are generally the ones that most people think of if they think at all of cloud computing. So it's compute, storage and network. This is, you might be thinking of AWS or Microsoft Azure. This is the type of thing people you will usually think of. So virtual machines, storage and network type services. But today there are a huge range of services that are being offered as a service. So all from monitoring, shopping carts, all the way through to identity. And here are some services that might be applicable for learning analytics. So there's a broad term around big data. So this is things like Hadoop, Cassandra, SAP HANA, a range of products on the market. Content sharing, this is things like Box and Dropbox, where it enables researchers, say, to share content around a research paper or research results, that sort of thing. And finally, backup and archive, which give you an opportunity to back up old data sets and old research and old papers. So the point of this slide is to demonstrate the many services that are available today. So each of these services is making the same promise. It's making the promise that it's available, efficient use of resources, it's available on demand, it will scale quickly, and it offers a pay-as-you-go model. So we're thinking of building a learning analytics type solution. It's to pick and choose these type of capabilities to build your learning analytics engine. So now I'll move on to the case study. So we've been working with K-12 for a little while around some broader technology challenges they've got, not specifically related to learning analytics, but I think the result of one of our solutions impacts learning analytics to a great extent, and this is where I'm going to reach out to the community and ask for some help. So what are the challenges? Well, the first challenge is around devices. So they're looking at implementing a bring your own device type model now because the federal government is no longer supporting, no longer subsidising devices for school children. They want to be able to offer, the content and the applications to their students anytime, anywhere. So this means Wi-Fi in the school, mobile on the go, and Wi-Fi at home. Today they've got many web apps that they already deliver to their students. This is how they deliver a lot of their applications and content. They want to continue to do that, but there's a problem with that. A lot of the web applications they use have different usernames and passwords, and this is actually a barrier to uptake, and they want that resolved. And finally, there's this issue around a beautiful experience. So the issue here is that students are coming now to class with expectations around user experience. They've had the experience of personal applications that are quite nice, and they're expecting the same from their educational applications. And if they are not provided with that, then that will impact uptake as well. So Telstra is a big company. We have different groups that address different issues. We do have a mobiles group that addressing the any device question. We have a networks group that's addressing the anywhere, anytime type questions. So this has left the last three for cloud, and this is where I've had a look at trying to come to a solution. So looking at those last three requirements, we went away and did our homework, and we decided to respond by reimagining the web experience. This was our response to those requirements. So a key insight occurred when we took a fresh look at what where the web is going. It's clear that web developers are looking to develop web applications rather than websites. And they're looking to use the latest HTML5 technology. So we're proposing to replace the existing browser experience built around websites with more gesture and app-friendly design for web apps and HTML5 technology. So at this stage, I'll just go to a quick mock-up. Hopefully it'll pop up. There we go. Oop. We'll just resize. There we go, that's better. So this is a mock-up of a tablet form factor. What we've done is build our own mock-up of experience for accessing web-based content. First of all, we've addressed the single sign-on with just a pin. There's no actual pin in this mock-up, but you might imagine there will be. And this is the home page. And what we've really tried to do is make it very easy to use so that we increase uptake very quickly. So on the left-hand side, it should be very easy to access information quickly. So things like notifications from applications. I'll just move across, email, SMS, and so forth. It should also be very easy to go quickly to a problem area for a particular application. So in this case, Mathletics is telling us that there's a problem that needs to be solved. We can do some work to try and solve that problem. And the answer is yes, that's good. And so the answer should appear here. This is one of the features. It's not an issue related to learning analytics, but it's just a fact of the way we're trying to design it. So the idea is that there's no distractions, there's no URLs, there's no back and forth buttons to distract the students. The idea is that you do your work and you're not distracted. Hopefully it pops out. There we go. Yeah, we can go home. So working with K-12, what we're finding is that there's a range of applications that they're asking their students to use to do curriculum. That's for a number of reasons, usually related to cost and availability. So what we've got here is a way for students to generate a lot of data. What we're trying to make it so it's possible to use, and they're generating a lot of data all the time. And that's a result of the good experience. That's what we're aiming for. So the issue is that we've got many people on our team who are parents, and one of the things parents always want to do is ask the question, how is my child doing at school? And so we mocked up that as well. So here is the parent version of it. So the parent gets a personalised view of the situation as well, but one of the things that they want to be able to do is understand how well their child is doing. So the consumer of this information is in fact the parent, not the student at this stage. And so what we've done is we've mocked up a few bits and pieces just to understand how it might look. And here we have a version for athletics. So this is where I say if you're a learning analytics expert, you might look at this and say this is rubbish, and that's okay because it probably is. What we're really looking for now is a way to provide parents with the capability to understand how their students are doing based on the type of applications their students are using to complete the curriculum that has been set for them by the school. Alright, that's the end of the mock-up. Okay, so you can see our problem. Hopefully you can see our problem. What we're trying to do is provide an experience for students where they want to use the applications, want to access the content. But we also want to be able to provide parents with a way of viewing reports to see how their students are doing. We don't know how to do that. And so we're reaching out now for help. How is this related to cloud computing? Well, one possible way it might relate to cloud computing is building an analytics service that runs on the cloud. So this is where it goes back to one of the assumptions I brought in with me today, and that you might consider using cloud resources to deliver such a thing. So here's an example of my naive view of how it might be built. So on the left-hand side, we've got all the sources of data. This has already been set by the school. There's no way we can change that. They've got their own requirements around what applications students are going to use. And at the bottom, we've got all the services that we could use to build a learning analytics engine. So a network so that people can access the solution, a compute cluster where the data analytics can run and you can perform your queries, however it is that learning analytics specialists know how to do, an archive solution to solve old data sets, identity so that you can ensure that only those people who have a right to access it can access it, billing so that you can pay for it, and monitoring to make sure if something goes wrong there's someone to call and is able to fix it. So it would be something like this. You would have a learning analytics engine. In some way, the data scientist would interact with the learning analytics engine to convert the data collected from these sources to an API that produces meaningful reports to different actors and might work through our solution, which would be nice. And it would be a dashboard, and so for the different actors, so student, parent, teacher, principal. I only talked about parents, and there's other actors obviously involved. And one other point would be that you could make this available to the service providers themselves so that they can improve their service. That would be another possibility. Okay, so just to go back, I guess, over what we've discussed. First of all, cloud computing. There's 4 promises to cloud computing. The first, improved utilisation, on-demand, scale quickly, pay as you go. So if you were to offer learning analytics as a service, these are the promises you would be making to your customers, I guess. There are many services available in the market today, so it's not just about the sort of AWS experience that is well understood. There may be a market for someone who can offer learning analytics as a service, and Telstra would be very happy to work with someone to do that. And finally, building learning analytics as a service might require a new type of architecture. Thank you. Questions?
I had one, but I've forgotten it. I guess the scalability of the cloud-based things. There's a couple of issues with the cloud. One of them is, every system is different. You've got to put the data out of those systems into your some sort of warehouse, and so that's tricky because you can't just take it from one school and put it in another school. So data transfer is a problem. And I guess the other thing is to do with ethics and security. That I'm not sure that Curtin would like to have its student data out on the cloud.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I sort of skimmed over some of the negatives to emphasise the positive, but those are certainly 2 issues. So data sovereignty, data security. There's usually policies, potentially governmental policies around control of data in that situation, for schools in particular, that would need to be addressed to build out something like this. I absolutely agree, and that would be something that it could potentially be a showstopper.
Yeah, but on the other hand, there are products like the ecosystem which stores its usage data on the cloud. The Lectopia upgrade, so that it stores some of its data out there, and it's secure.
Yeah, so the only thing I would say to that is that a lot of schools in K-12, and I'm mentioning K-12 because that's who we've been working with, not so much the universities on this issue, they've got constraints around cost and availability, and so Khan Academy is quite, in that context, Khan Academy is quite valuable to them. So the issue around where is the data stored, there are sometimes ways to get around that if there are other issues that need to be, that are more pressing, basically, like cost. Yes.
So it seems to me like you're building more of an access portal, the apps integrate into it rather than necessarily. I guess my question is the learning analytics around the engagement on the platform, the engagement in the actual athletics, that sort of stuff, because they all have their own metrics that they measure.
They do have all their metrics. So the issue there would be that not every student uses exactly the same application. I think what the value would be is to be able to aggregate that information and provide some analytics around the aggregation of that information in a way that is meaningful to the various actors, so the parents and so forth. I don't know what that would mean in reality. I mean, obviously this is where we're reaching out and what does that mean? But the aggregation of data, I suspect, is a valuable aspect of this type of solution.
It strikes me that a lot of this is a bit of a solution in search of the problem. Really, we've got all this data, we're collecting all this data, we're organising all this data, but the question still remains at the end of the day, how does it become a practice and what do we change because of the data that we collected and where do we go with it? And it's interesting. I'm hoping that the next speakers will sort of take us forward on that, but the talks up to now have all been very sort of mechanical, if you like, about how do we find it and collect it and organise it rather than what do we actually go and do with it. Because I suspect that it's not going to go away. We're going to collect more and more data, more and more stuff as we go down the track, and at some stage we're actually going to have to sit down and think, okay, now that we've got it all, where does it lead us and where are we going to take us?
I mean, absolutely. So I guess the only context I'd put in there is that I'm just trying to answer one question, which is, from a parent's point of view, how is my child doing? Can we answer that question? That's all. I don't know, maybe it's not even possible to answer that question, so I'm just putting it out there as a challenge, I guess.
some schools do have their own internal system. One that my kids' school uses Sector, and there are actually relevant multiple schools, and I can only imagine the learning analytics that goes behind it and all the information that goes in there. And I see what you have with Athletics is a third-party software that schools use it as a core curriculum, not necessarily that it's in curriculum. So there are two ways that you can look at it. One's in curriculum with what they already have in the existing platform, and another one is a core curriculum, and somehow how do you integrate those two information, because both would be relevant and meaningful for the parents.
I agree. How to do that? This is a question I have.
What I've seen, a different system is CALS, which is for out of the States. It's an English and also a maths program. You think you need to link somehow standard curriculum phrases or knowledge with what's being done in different applications. So vocabulary for an English development should be something that goes throughout all of the applications. You might have to look for words or some type of standardisation across within a curriculum. Then you may be able to draw on that in terms of meaningful statistics. But you'll need some centre of gravity, because they're all speaking in different languages apart from they're teaching a curriculum or they're using a curriculum-based.
I mean, I take your point, and it's a good one. The only thing I would say is this is not something Telstra, we don't have the capability to do that. We don't have the knowledge, we don't have the expertise. So this is why we're opening it up.
I'd like to comment on what I saw there. Is it seems to me the value is, like you said, around aggregation. If you've got the temporal data, when did he do the maths test? What was his score? When did he do the English? It really doesn't matter whose maths test it was, quite frankly, if that's what the school wants to use. But the fact that you can gather that temporal information and look at behaviours over time, when they're solving the problems, when they're not working on their problems, etc., that seems to me ultimately you should be able to provide the parents prediction on what's going to happen to their child, not what's already happened to their child.
Yeah, so I mean, based on our naive knowledge, we went on a history. This is the history of what's happened. But if that's something, if that's a capability that could be explored, certainly explore it.
That would seem to me to be the core value.
I would have thought you're also pitching at the individual end user. I mean, basically you're creating an aggregation tool as the last person commented upon, and the value of these aggregating tools, I think about my own field, is then you pitch them to the end user, who that end user is, and it really becomes the individual end user rather than necessarily a corporate entity or an institution. And you can have some sort of social media element built into that as well, and you might get uptake that way. How's little Johnny doing compared to his neighbour down the road and his friend? And then they won't I would imagine they might actually care less about what the actual content, what actual metric you're using, will be the comparative.
Yeah. I mean, that might be another way of looking at it. Certainly opens well.
Yeah, thank you very much.